7:43, welcome back. Fly Shop from Century Plaza Hotel and Spa. We give all kinds of tips here on the show from the experts when it comes to healthy eating. Well, Canada got a new food guide, the first change we saw since 2007. Dr. Hutchinson joining us right now. You are part of overseeing this big change. What have you seen in terms of feedback from the new direction for the food guide?
Oh, I mean, it's been overwhelmingly positive. We've just actually been kind of a little bit blown away by how positive it has been across the board. It was a big change. It was time. We had gotten criticism before that it was stale. You know, it wasn't using new technology. It didn't really speak to people. They didn't understand this. Eating so many servings of this particular size, that sort of didn't work. So we shifted everything on its head, which I think you're aware of when you look at the new one.
You know what? We actually here's the graphic right here. The big change direction-wise was.
Well, really what it was is we went away from that prescriptive approach to eat this and eat that to a proportionality. And that was really based on what were the key public health messages we want to get across. So if you look at the plate here, you see half of it is in vegetables and fruit. And the reason we do that is because we know Canadians are not eating enough vegetables and fruit, and we know that they have incredible health benefits to be doing that.
So how do you make that affordable, though? Because the produce factor, and you know, here in Vancouver, there's access to resources, but some people say, I can't afford to pull that off. I want to eat healthy, but it's a challenge.
So with respect to us putting together that plate, of course, there are several factors that we took into consideration, but one of them was cost as well. And I know there was a study just came out 2 weeks ago out of Dalhousie University and Guelph University that actually analyzed the cost of the new food guide compared to the old food guide. And they're actually 8.6% cheaper on the new food guide than the old food guide. But sometimes I think that the plate looked a little bit too pretty, so it was almost like you thought that this was a very expensive plate. But those foods that are there can be had frozen, they can be had canned, they can be had dried, and a lot of them actually are that way as well. So the key in one perspective is that we're not talking about just fresh. That you have to really think of the season you're in and when the costs are appropriate. When things are fresh coming in, they can be in season, but other times and parts of Canada you don't actually have that availability. So we are saying that you really have to look at the properly processed foods as well in terms of again the canning, the freezing, and the drying. So that's an important component to that.
We've got some of those key messages to come up. Viv, if you can bring up the first board to kind of look at this too. And when I was looking through these of how you save money, stick to your list in shopping, one of the interesting points that came out: if you're in the grocery store, companies pay more to keep their products at eye level.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
So really looking around and stocking up on these canned goods. So when we think fresh veggies or produce, we can capitalize on the canned goods.
That's correct. And you brought out a really good point there. Is that there are good foods a little bit everywhere in the grocery store, but you have to be aware of that. And on the food guide's much more than that picture, that visual. That's a snapshot, but it's just that. It's just a snapshot. There is a wealth of information that we have in our new food guide, and it's all electronic, and it's available wherever you are. We developed it sort of mobile first. You can have it on your phone, you can have it on your tablet, you can have it on your computer. So you can get that sort of advice and sort of build these things into your life all the time.
That last point on the board, though, did say limit processed foods, though. So when you're trying to get the canned goods on the other side, what do you want to limit here?
Yeah, so we're not talking about limiting processed foods per se. What we're talking about is to limit those foods, processed and prepared foods that contribute to excess sodium, excess saturated fat, and excess sugars. So those three, what we tend to call the nutrients of public health concern, those are the ones we want to be limiting. So as part of the food skills that we're encouraging Canadians to build up is how to use your labels. How can you actually tell that these foods have too much sodium, too many saturated fats, or too much sugar in it as well. So that's part of what we have to educate people about.
And so that's a good point of what to look for with the labels. The other one is saving time, because with families, you're always on the go. Take us through these tips right here to really make the most of the new Canada food guide. I like this: cook once, eat twice.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the idea there is that if you're preparing, say, chicken for your dinner, you actually cook twice as much as what you want, and you might use it in a particular way one day, but you might use it the next day to add chicken to your salad, for lunch or something like that. Or you cook a big batch of rice that you can use one day one way, and then make something with it the second day. And we talk about batch cooking there as well. I mean, that's something that I do all the time on the weekends because I don't have an awful lot of time during the week, and so I'll cook batches of basically stews and soups and stuff like that, which then I can freeze, and then I've got them whenever I need them as well.
Overall, when you look at the new direction that we went here in 2019, what do you think is going to be the hardest thing to change habits so people are following it? They're being healthier. I see hydration a factor with water. I see the plant-based elements that have been introduced and focused upon.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I think the hardest part is how we're bombarded with information out there. So when you think of marketing of foods, we are constantly hit with marketing of foods, and most of the foods that we're marketed with would not be necessarily the foods that I have on my plate. They are foods that can be high in sodium, high in sugars, and high in saturated fat as well. So sometimes it's hard to get the message across of what actually is a healthy pattern of eating, so you can go forward. The other thing that we've changed on this food guide, of course, is not just about what you eat and what you don't eat. It also gets into that health eating is much more than that. And what we've tried to bring forward is this concept of mindful eating, putting down your screens and taking the time to sit down, eating with others, cooking more often. Of course, you've already seen that. We're really pushing very strongly developing those skills. And especially with kids, we want to really bring kids along and transfer that information to kids and help them develop those healthy eating patterns right in the house, right from the very beginning as well.
Whole new set of habits. Best resource online that people can track what we're describing?
Yes. Well, we've got, as far as I'm concerned, it's the best resource we got out there, and it's just at Canada's Food Guide.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put those details on our Facebook page as well. Dr. Hutchinson, thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you so much.
We'll get to watch this right after.